descent from Abraham was not a rigid requirement for the fulfillment of Jehovah's purpose regarding the seed. The symbolic olive tree. Paragraph 13, question. What is represented by A, the olive tree, B, its root, C, its trunk, and D, its branches? The Apostle Paul goes on to compare those who become part of Abraham's seed to branches on a symbolic olive tree. The footnote reads, evidently, there is no typical or antitypical olive tree. Although natural Israel did produce kings and priests, the nation did not become a kingdom of priests. Kings in Israel were prevented by law from becoming priests. Therefore, natural Israel did not serve as a typical olive tree. Paul is illustrating how God's purpose to produce a kingdom of priests is fulfilled in connection with spiritual Israel. This updates what was published in the August 15, 1983 Watchtower, pages 14 to 19. End of footnote. This cultivated olive tree represents the fulfillment of God's purpose with regard to the Abrahamic covenant. The root of the tree is holy and represents Jehovah as the one who gives life to spiritual Israel. The trunk represents Jesus as the primary part of Abraham's seed. The branches collectively represent the full number of those included in the secondary part of Abraham's seed. Paragraphs 14 and 15, question. Who were broken off the cultivated olive tree, and who were grafted onto it? In the illustration of the olive tree, the natural Jews who rejected Jesus are likened to olive branches that were broken off. They thereby lost the opportunity to become part of Abraham's seed. But who would replace them? From the standpoint of the natural Jews who prided themselves on their fleshly descent from Abraham, the answer would be unthinkable. But John the Baptizer had already forewarned them that if Jehovah wished to do so, he could raise up children to Abraham from the very stones. What then did Jehovah do to fulfill his purpose? Paul explains that branches from a wild olive tree were grafted onto the cultivated olive tree to replace those broken off. Romans 11:17 and 18 reads, however, if some of the branches were broken off, but you, although being a wild olive, were grafted in among them and became a sharer of the olive's root of fatness, do not be exulting over the branches. If though you are exulting over them, it is not you that bear the root, but the root bears you. Thus, Spirit-anointed Christians of the nations, such as some in the congregation in Rome, were figuratively grafted onto this symbolic olive tree. In this way, they became part of Abraham's seed. Originally, they were like wild olive branches, not having any opportunity to be a part of this special covenant. But Jehovah opened the way for them to become spiritual Jews. Paragraph 16, question. How did the Apostle Peter explain the formation of the new spiritual nation? The Apostle Peter explains the situation this way. It is to you, spiritual Israelites, including Gentile Christians, therefore, that he, Jesus Christ, is precious, because you are believers. But to those not believing, the identical stone that the builders rejected has become the head of the corner, and a stone of stumbling and a rock mass of offense. But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for special possession, that you should declare abroad the excellencies of the one that called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. For you were once not a people, but are now God's people. You were those who had not been shown mercy, but are now those who have been shown mercy. 1 Peter 2:7-10. Paragraph 17, question. How was what Jehovah did contrary to nature? Jehovah did something that many would view as totally unexpected. Paul describes what happened as contrary to nature, Romans 11:24. How was this so? Well, it would seem unusual, even unnatural, to graft a wild branch onto a cultivated tree, Yet that is what some farmers did in the first century. In a similar way, Jehovah did something extraordinary. From a Jewish viewpoint, Gentiles were incapable of producing acceptable fruitage. However, Jehovah made these very ones part of a nation that produced kingdom fruitage. Starting with the anointing of Cornelius, the first uncircumcised Gentile convert in 36 CE, the opportunity was opened up to uncircumcised non-Jews to be grafted onto this symbolic olive tree. The footnote reads, "This was at the end of the 3.5-year opportunity that was given to the natural Jews to become part of the new spiritual nation. The prophecy concerning the 70 weeks of years foretold this development." The following is supplementary information. Grafting wild olive branches, why? Lucius Junius Moderatus Columella was a Roman soldier and farmer who lived in the 1st century CE. He is best known for the 12 books that he wrote on country life and farming. In his 5th book, he quotes this ancient proverb, "He who plows the olive grove asks it for fruit. He who manures it begs for fruit. He who lops it forces it to yield fruit." After describing trees that are thriving and yet fail to bear fruit, he recommends the following procedure. It is a good plan to bore them with a Gallic auger and to put tightly into the hole a green slip taken from a wild olive tree. The result is that the tree, being as it were impregnated with fruitful offspring, becomes more productive. Returning to the article. Paragraph 18, question. What opportunity did natural Jews have after 36 CE? Does this mean that after 36 CE there was no longer any opportunity for natural Jews to become part of Abraham's seed? No. Paul explains. They, natural Jews also, if they do not remain in their lack of faith, will be grafted in. For God is able to graft them in again. For if you were cut out of the olive tree that is wild by nature, and were grafted contrary to nature into the garden olive tree, how much rather will these who are natural be grafted into their own olive tree? Romans 11:23 and 24. The footnote reads, the Greek prefix translated garden at Romans 11:24 comes from a word meaning good, excellent, or well adapted to its ends. It is used especially of things that fulfill the purpose for which they were made. End of footnote. All Israel will be saved. Paragraphs 19 and 20, question. What does Jehovah accomplish as illustrated by the symbolic olive tree? Yes, Jehovah's purpose with regard to the Israel of God is being fulfilled in a marvelous way. Galatians 6:16. As Paul said, all Israel will be saved. Romans 11:26. In Jehovah's due time, all Israel, that is, the complete number of spiritual Israelites, will serve as kings and priests in heaven. Nothing can cause Jehovah's purpose to fail. As foretold, Abraham's seed, Jesus Christ, along with the 144,000, will bring blessings to people of the nations. Romans 11:12. In this way, all of God's people benefit from this arrangement. Truly, as we contemplate the outworking of Jehovah's eternal purpose, we cannot help but be amazed at what is stated at Romans 11:33, the depth of God's riches and wisdom and knowledge. After listening to this article, do you remember? What do we learn about Jehovah from the way he fulfills his purpose? In Romans chapter 11, what is represented by the olive tree, its root, its trunk, its branches? Why was the grafting process contrary to nature? End of article.